standing by if you need me to assist. Okay.
I'll try to do my very best. We just heard how important it is to clean. And let me give you my thoughts about what does it mean cleaning in a food factory and what is involved if we talk about cleaning. And I couldn't have had a better introduction as from Professor Peter Haus, because you will see a lot of things are very, very similar and the small things are very important. I always said the first thing is, I'm battling with my mouse as well, but I'm pretty sure I'll make it running. Let me just try to change to the next slide. Okay, I'm still battling, but it should. Okay. Okay. First of all, I think I do have good news. And good news means cleaning is not a science. So it's not rocket science. It's nothing which is very, very complicated. It's nothing where we have to have studied. But of course, cleaning means you need a plan, and at the end of the day, you need a consequence. So you have to know what you are doing, and you have to plan it properly, and then you just have to do it. It's like always in life, it's a lot of small things, and you just have to do it. But it's not very difficult. It is just something you have to plan, you have to think about, you have to take it serious, and then you just have to do it. What does it mean, cleaning? At the end of the day, from our point of view, it's not about like being in front of a mirror every morning and try to make up yourself to be nicer. It's not about nice. At the end of the day, when we talk about cleaning in the food industry, we talk about ensure safe products. That's at the end of the day why we are doing it. And as we heard before, it's not about having a product at the end of the day and testing the product. It's about the whole process and whatever you do. And if everything is right and all your recipes are fine and whatever you do is fine, and you don't have a proper cleaning procedure in place, you will not have safe products. And as we heard as well today, or just before, cleaning becomes even more complicated because the microorganism and everything is building up resistances. And that's what you have to take in consideration as well. At the end of the day, of course, cleaning is as well extending shelf life. But for me, that's not what we are doing. That comes with cleaning, and it's good, of course. But at the end of the day, it's not the main target. The target is we have to ensure that we do have safe products. And that's why we have to clean. And if we talk about, let's call the science, even if I said it's not a science. The first rule, and that's very similar to what Professor Peter said, we have to avoid contamination. That's one of the first things. It sounds funny to say, yeah, we have to avoid a contamination when I talk about cleaning, but it's really, there are countries and areas where they say we don't care because at the end of the day, the product anyway, we spray it with some chlorine or we spray it with funny acid, whatever, and then everything gets killed on the slaughter body, for example, and therefore it doesn't matter. And I'm pretty sure that's the wrong way to go. You shouldn't say it doesn't matter, and at the end of the day, anyway, I do have any disinfection or a sterilization or whatever, and it kills everybody, everything. That's not working. It's as well not working as we heard because we are building up resistances, and whatever you sanitize and disinfect it might have a side effect as well. So first rule, and it's really very serious what I think about, avoid contamination. So avoid the necessity of cleaning. You always have to clean because we know microorganism and everything is everywhere. So you will never have a factory where we don't have any microorganism or any cultures or whatever. We need them. You can't have any good salami. You can't have any good cheese without bacteria. So there will be always there, but we have to control, as we heard as well. And when we talk about avoiding contamination, it's basically, please avoid cross-contamination. And that's something which doesn't cost you a hell of a lot of money. It's just something you have to plan and you have to think about where it comes from. Where does the contamination comes from? And when we talk about cross-contamination, then let's start with the personnel flow. So cross-contamination in terms of personnel is one of the most important things which you should do. And that's as well easy. You just have to do it. When you think about change room, then just please make sure that the people coming from the outside and the people who are well dressed and going on production floor don't meet each other, don't hug each other, and don't have too much contact to each other, because that's where the contamination comes from. And that's, again, nothing which costs you a lot of money. Just make a plan that they will not meet and that you don't have cross-contamination. The same with the toilets. Make sure that people come from a toilet doesn't have proper personal hygiene before they meet other people. Again, when you look at low risk, medium risk, high risk, it's fine. Just make sure that the people who are living in those or working in those different risk areas don't meet each other without having any lobbies in between, however they look like. And it doesn't have to be very fancy lobbies. It's just a matter of planning the personnel flow the right way. And that's all about. And that's what I said. It's not a big science. It's just to make a couple of small things right. So just avoid the cross-contamination between all areas with different hygiene levels. That makes a huge impact. It means as well, we talk about the personnel flow, but we should talk about the product contamination as well. So make sure that products which come from different areas don't meet each other. For example, raw and cooked products. Just make sure in your product flow and product flow on the production floor that raw and cooked products don't come close to each other. Packed and unpacked products. Make sure that there is a lobby in between, however it looks like. Again, it doesn't have to be a fancy lobby. Just make sure that the flow is right. Packaging material versus food products. Make sure that no, for example, wooden pallets and other stuff is on the production floor where the open meat is next to it. Those things have a huge impact, and we shouldn't talk about cleaning before we haven't those things right. It's the same issue. Just make sure that in those areas with different hygiene levels, the products don't have contact to each other. It means as well, I called it tool cross-contamination. What does it mean? It means easily that all the stuff you need on the production floor, if it's pallets, if it's tubs, if it's crates, the crates coming from outside shouldn't go into your factory without having properly cleaned. And the pellets I talked about, wooden pellets. Make sure that the wooden pellets come from outside, don't go on your production floor. Think about how the forklift and the pallet checks and other things which are outside goes onto your production floor. What happens with the wheels? With those things, you have, this does have a huge impact on how you have to clean. But instead of cleaning it afterwards, make sure that it will not happen. Or a small issue, a toolbox. I'm just wondering very often what people are doing. They have a workshop, which is, as a workshop is, of course, not a very, very high cleaned area. And then they have an whatever incident on the production floor. They take the toolbox from outside, walking over the street and going on the production floor. What happened in this toolbox? That's for me, it's unbelievable. So just make things like that easy. Maybe having a toolbox in the high care area, which stays in the hygiene area. So you have some tools, at least the most popular one, the one you need most, and keep it in the different areas, that you don't carry the dirty tools from outside into the high risk area. And those things, again, are very, very important. And you don't have to clean because you avoid the cross-contamination. And at the end of the day, it's the same. Just make sure that all these tools, forklifts, pallet checks, however you call it, don't come from one different hygiene level to the other one. And the second rule of the science, and it's only those two rules, and we heard it before as well, it's everything about temperature, it's about time, it's about chemicals, and it's about mechanic. Mechanic looks a little bit bigger than the others, which is not what I want to show. It doesn't mean that mechanic is more important than time. It's always different. What I try to say, and that's exactly what Professor Peter said as well, you have to have the time. That's something you have to take it serious whenever you want to clean anything. And it doesn't matter if you clean your hand or your shoes or whatever. It means you have to have time. You need some type of chemicals, and you need some temperature, which is different. Of course, it's different if you clean, let's say, milk, or if you clean lamb meat particles or beef. So it's different. But whatever you do, it does have an impact. And you need some type of mechanical reaction, even if it's just a foam bubble which is bursting. It's a type of mechanical interaction, but that's what you need. And whatever you want to do, you have to realize you need those times, and you always have those 4 things which does have an impact. And that's something you cannot avoid. So if we talk about cleaning, what areas do we think you have to clean? It starts, from my point of view, with the personal hygiene. Even that we heard before. And if we talk about personal hygiene, I think we have to think about hand hygiene, because that's the hand is the unit you're touching the goods. Even if you wear gloves or whatever. I even heard this funny story to say we don't have to have hand hygiene because anyway we wear gloves. That's for me totally nonsense, because you touch the glove as well. So nothing is more important as hand hygiene. And when we talk about hand hygiene, then of course I don't have to go in detail, because everybody should know from the industry you're coming from how to wash your hand, starting with rinsing and then taking soap, etc., etc. It's fine. But what I would like to mention is to wash your hand at the end of the day. It will take you, we can now argue about 18 or 20 or 25 or 30 seconds. It means you have to have time. And if I come to some factories and I can see 2 hand wash basins and 100 people going in and out, I say to myself, I know those people don't taking hand cleaning serious, because it's not possible. You can't wash your hand in 2 seconds or in 1 second, and they will just pass. So, and that's what I try to say at the beginning, make a plan. So make a plan that it's possible and easy for the people to do it. And therefore be aware that you need time, beside the fact that you might need soap and warm water. But you need time. It's the same when you dry your hand, regardless if you dry it with paper or if you dry it with air. You have a lot of pros and cons, but at the end of the day, you need time. So if you take hand hygiene serious, make sure that the people do have the time to do it proper. And if you have a nice hand wash basin or an old one, that's another story. But at least give them the time and the possibility to wash your hand. And if they don't have the time and the possibility, don't wonder that they won't do it. And don't wonder that you might have trouble because the hand hygiene is not done properly. And we heard as well, sanitizing, disinfection, that's the last step. So after you have cleaned everything, you have to sanitize your hand. And I 100% agree as well that if somebody is telling you, I have a wonderful thing, everything is in one, you put in your hand and then it's done. That's nonsense. You have to rinse, you have to clean, you have to dry, and you have to disinfect. And that's the steps. And whatever you argue, either you do it or you don't do it. Either you do find some excuse, yes, why you think you don't have to do it, but it doesn't make sense. At the end of the day, that's the step you have to do. And even drying, if you haven't dried your hand properly, the disinfection will not work the way it should work. That's why we from our industry get forced more and more to say, okay, we can explain to the people, but what is if they are not doing it? And of course, you can do it on a hand wash basin, and the people who are trained and skilled and whatever will take soap, and then they will wash their hand, and then they will sanitize their hand. Wonderful. But what is if the people don't understand you? If you don't speak the language from the people, or if they just are not willing to do it? That's why we get forced to develop products, and that's what we do more and more to make sure that the people do what they should do, because otherwise they are not allowed to go into production flow. So meaning we do have a development of hand hygiene, let's say, devices, which first of all you have to wash your hand, and they're sensor operated. So you have to wash your hand 15 seconds, 12 seconds, whatever. You can't go to the next step until you haven't done it and until you have finished it. Otherwise, it will not allow you to go ahead. And then you have to take soap as well, sensor operated. And then you dry your hand and then you sanitize your hand. Everything is sensor operated to make sure that the people do what they are supposed to. Sometimes I think it's sad that we really have to force the people to do things like that because we are not sure that they are doing it. But at the end of the day, that's what we're doing more and more, to say, make sure that the people are forced to, on one side, but I see it from a positive way of view, to say we try to make it as easy as possible for the people. So that even if you don't understand any language, and even if you do have not a lot of introduction, it's easy. You put your hand in and you see likewise what you have to do, and then you just follow the lights, and at the end of the day, everything is fine. So we try to force the people, but we try to do it on a friendly and on a very easy way to make the people to do it as easy as possible, to do the right things proper. And therefore, of course, it goes ahead to say it's linked up with a turnstile, for example, really to make sure that the people are not allowed to go in if they haven't done it properly. Then, of course, you do have, depending on the amount of people going in, going out, you have turnstiles where they get soap, wash their hands, sanitize their hand, etc., etc. But again, as I said in the beginning, it needs time. And therefore, the most asked question we always have is, how many people are going through a lobby or through an entrance at the same time? And then we can calculate how big the lobby, how many hand wash basins, whatever you do need. Because coming back, if I see an entrance with 2 hand wash basins and 100 people coming in, I know immediately they don't care really about cleaning and about hygiene, because that doesn't work. And of course, even if it's small, then think the other way. Instead of having maybe a hell of a lot of hand wash basins, maybe think about to split the people. Not all of them have to come at the same time. Not all of them can go to the deboning line or whatever at the same time. So maybe just split them into groups of 20, 5 times 20, with a gap of 3, 4, 5 minutes. It helps a lot to take this thing serious. And that's again something which is not a rocket science, which is not very complicated and doesn't cost you a lot of money. You just think about it and do it proper. And then, of course, as I said at the beginning, please do it consequent. We even come to a point where we have to do it with a camera. The industry is forcing us to say, hey guys, we try to make sure that the people cannot bullshit and bypass the system. So we even installed a camera in the units where you put in, and we're counting the fingers, and you do have to have 10 fingers. You have to spread the fingers, and only then the system will sanitize you. And it will sanitize you with a, let's say, like a mist of sanitizer, so that it really goes between the fingers, which is very important, so that you really sanitize your hand, and not only one place, that you sanitize the whole hand as it should be. Beside the fact of the hand, of course, we have to think about shoes as well, because with shoes we go from outside into inside of the facility. Now you can argue to say, anyway, I don't touch with the shoes my product. That's hopefully true. But of course, when you bring in whatever microorganism or bacteria or whatever on your shoes into production, then it's in the production area. And through the floor and whatever might happen, more and more, you bring it into the production floor, and that's what we have to avoid. And therefore is some kind of shoe, sole, boot hygiene as well very important. All of you guys know an entrance like that, and you can see as well those guys cleaning the shoes. For me, is always very funny, because they're just cleaning the top side of the boot. They're cleaning the boot leg, which doesn't make sense. They can't clean the sole because they are standing on the sole. And therefore, that's for me excuses. And that's for me, we don't clean because we want to like to make the veterinarian happy, or we like to fulfill whatever an auditor like to see. We do it, as I said, from our point of view, to make the product safe. And therefore, that's just a joke, because it doesn't really help, and it doesn't come to the core of the problem. It's a soul. And therefore, we believe in units like that. We can discuss, of course, always about pros and cons, but you have to have some type of brushes which cleans your sole and not the top side of the boot. here as well. The other thing you do have, of course, you stand with one leg and you clean the other leg. And if you clean the left-hand leg, in this case, you step back. So meaning you stand in the dirt, you clean, and you go back into the dirt. So that doesn't really make sense. That's just to keep somebody quiet, or maybe just to have an excuse. We do whatever we can do, but for me, that's not working. That doesn't make sense. And that's just you spending time, you're spending money for nothing. Therefore, we believe in a walkthrough system, however you call it. Coming back to what I said before, to divide the dirty side or the clean side between dirty and clean, between white and black, however you call it, in terms of dirt. That's the only thing which makes sense. Otherwise, you do things which doesn't really make sense. And then when we talk about the personnel flow, as I said before, we have, of course, to think about the factory itself as well. Beside the fact, again, that we have to avoid it, we have to think about the factory hygiene. And even here, that's why I'd like to repeat it again. Think about if you have to clean something, then please think about you need time, you need temperature, you need some type of chemicals, or not only one type. We heard about resistancy. That's why we choosing always to say, if it comes, for example, to foam cleaning, you have to swap between, let's say, an acid and an alkaline, or at least between different chemicals, so that the bacteria does not get used to it, because otherwise it will not work at all. And when we talk about the factory, to clean the factory, of course, it should be as efficient as possible. There is no doubt, in terms of water consumption, in terms of chemical consumption, in terms of energy consumption, and of course, in terms of time consumption. So cleaning, of course, it has to be done proper, but more and more it has to be, of course, being as efficient as possible, and of course, as secure as possible. That's why we tend to go more and more to do process by process, as much as possible, automated, so that we are not depending on people and how good they are at the moment, and how they are happy or not happy, and if they are doing it proper or not proper. So we try to do it as more in an automated process, which we can monitor, and of course, we can even record. So if somebody is asking us, what have you done? We say, okay, we have done it from 8:10 to 9:10, and we have done it in this way and with this temperature and everything. So to say, we made sure that everything is fine. When we talk about, first of all, manual cleaning, then we talk, even if it sounds very simple, it's brushware. And I tell you, there is a huge difference between brushware and brushware, if we talk from a hygienic point of view. And that's why you can see it, small, easy thing. That's a color code. If you just start to say, okay, my brushware is color coded, and as you can see on the right hand side, my factory is as well color coded, then you see it's far easier to make sure that the brush which you're using outside is not being used in the hiker area, and the brush which you're using in the slaughter area is not used somewhere. And therefore, that's easy, small things which helps a hell of a lot. I just see, I think I have to be a little bit faster, otherwise I'm in trouble with Linda. When we go ahead with factory hygiene, of course, we did a lot of developments in terms of water pressure. What is the best way to clean the factory? Here, for example, you can see we did a lot of different trials in terms of water pressure. And we realized that if the water pressure is too low, for example, 3 bar or even less, it's not very efficient. But we realized as well, if we increase the water pressure up to, in this case, 22 or even more bar, the water consumption as well is increasing. So there is something in between, let's say 3 and 22, a little bit depending on, but let's say 18 bar or something like that. That's the most efficient way of having the water pressure to be as fast and therefore as efficient, not only fast, as efficient as possible. But we realized as well, it does have a big impact if you use foam or if you don't use foam. We did a lot of trials to say, okay, if you clean normally, and that's why I think it's very funny, and I see it often, people standing with this 3/4 inch hoses with cold water and trying to clean the facility. That doesn't just not work. because as we said before, you don't have, maybe you have temperature, even if it's cold, but you don't have any chemicals, so it doesn't work at the end of the day. And everybody knows if you want to clean fat, for example, with cold water, it might be possible, but it's not easy, and you will struggle. So it doesn't help. And therefore, we found out as well, if you use foam, it's far, far faster and more secure, and therefore far more efficient to do it. And on the left-hand side, it's a side effect you see as well. Whatever pressure you have, of course, a pressure loss, and you do have a pressure loss in the satellite, and you do have it in the hose. And as higher the pressure is, as higher is the loss as well, percentage-wise. So meaning, as you higher go with the pressure, beside all the negative effects you will have with aerosol and other stuff, it doesn't make sense from an energy point of view, because you will lose a hell of a lot of energy before it really comes to the production floor where you should use it. So for us, with all the investigations we did, the best and efficient way is you have low pressure, meaning around about 18 bars, 20 bar foam cleaning. That's the most efficient and best way to do it. It should be as easy as possible. So there are developments on the market where you just have one handle and you have a color code, meaning that's acid, that's disinfection, that's alkaline. So that's rinsing. You don't have to mix by yourself and putting chemicals into water and whatever. The system is doing it by themselves. You just link it up with canister, and then the people have to go. It doesn't make, and you don't have cleaning stuff which had a university degree. So make it as simple as possible and as easy as possible. I think that's very important as well. Just a second. So therefore, we say low pressure foam cleaning is the way you should clean in your facility. Now my slide is not working again, but so even if it's a mobile unit, of course, you can start with a mobile unit to use it in different areas where you don't have the necessity to clean every day. You can have units where you have wall-mounted main station, which includes the booster pump, or you do have a booster pump which is based in a separate room where you do have your compressors and other stuff. That doesn't matter. And it always depending how often you have to clean, what is the area, do you clean it on a daily basis or whatever. But that's the way to do it from our point of view. And there is no doubt, even that cleaning, you have to do it on a regular basis, however you do it. But if you do it on a regular basis, you will see it's easier, it's fast, the people get used to it, and then it's working. This funny 1 month deep cleaning, that doesn't make any sense, because this deep cleaning, then it's really a hard work, because in all the corners you can see the yellow shining and everything is starting. That doesn't really help. Do it on a manual and a regular basis, and you will see it's working. You can have central and decentral cleaning. It doesn't matter. That's as well depending on a short 1 minute video to show you how the people. It should run now. It's running now. How to clean. Linda, are we still good in the time, or am I running too late? I haven't looked. Okay, you see, so this guy is rinsing first, then he is foaming. As you see, he just has one thing to turn, and then he's rinsing from top to bottom, and then he's foaming from bottom to top. Then you just need to have some time, let the chemical work, and then you rinse it again. And as you see, that's a very easy and as well a very quick way of doing it. And if you do it in a regular basis, you will see it's even easier. And you know, when you come with brushes and whatever, you will not come in all the corners and everything. It's not possible. But the foam is going into every corner, into every single corner, and therefore it's working far, far better. And now you see, okay, he's disinfecting, depending on if you foam disinfect or rinse disinfect, then you rinse it again, and that's it. And once again, that's if you do it on a regular basis, and if you plan it properly, that's very fast, very quick, and immediately it's becoming faster and far, far better. Okay. I told and mentioned already, we more and more go to automated systems, saying, okay, these units are linked up with a conveyor with nozzles. If you clean a conveyor belt, to have someone standing 20 minutes in front of a conveyor belt and cleaning this, it's not really a funny job. And therefore, we don't have to wonder that it's not working really well. So that we more and more using nozzles, which are linked up with an automated system where we rinse, foam, rinse again, whatever we have to do. And we know it's done the way we want to do it. Sometimes we even using steam cleaning when we have a very dry environment to avoid that it becomes very, very wet. What we do more and more, we even scan afterwards with fluorescence to make sure that the belt is cleaned. So meaning the end of the day, the target is to say, okay, we do have a sensor and we clean the conveyor belt, for example, until it's clean. We don't clean it 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes. We just clean it until it's clean. And therefore, we have this clean check and become more and more part of it to make sure, and again, to record later on that this belt was clean. I said before, forklift, unpallet checks. We should think about what is about the wheel. How can we make sure that the wheel at least gets sanitized? For me, as I said at the beginning, it's always the best to make sure that you don't have cross-contamination. So maybe have forklifts outside and other forklifts inside. That's the best way. But if it's not, if you can't avoid it sometimes, just have a unit like that which sprays as well automatic sanitizer on the floor, so that whenever you go through, at least the wheels of the forklift of the hand pallet check get sanitized. The same when we talk about crate, we said it already. Crates, you can't bring crates from outside into the factory because it will be, of course, a big source of contamination. The new development of crate washing machines is in the meanwhile rotating nozzles because they are far more efficient than static nozzles. It's very similar to the dishwasher. They're using rotating nozzle as well, and there is a reason for it. Professor Peter Host said as well before, and I think that was very, very important. Whatever you have to make sure that you are able to clean. And it doesn't mean when you have a crate washer in which you can't clean properly, and which doesn't have a hygienic design, it will not work in a long-term view. That's why make sure that all the surfaces are sloped, that you don't have any horizontal surfaces, so that the water can release fully, that nothing can stand on the units, regardless which unit this is. Even the crates going in a slope through the machine, to avoid that you bring too much water from one section into the other section. That's very important. We heard it as well. You have to make sure that all the equipment, and that's why it's designed, I mean, well, is easy to clean. So make sure that the tank is accessible, that you have great and big windows to go in, that every corner is possible to reach. I saw a hell of a lot of washing machines which had been so dirty that I refused to touch those units. How can we expect that a clean product, a clean crate, whatever you want to wash, comes out of a machine like that? So make sure that the machine is designed in a way that it's easy to clean, that the corners are round, so that's really perfect and easy. Even what I think is very important, those tubes, which is the wastewater tube of a washing machine, that has to be designed in a way that you can take it out, that you can take it in the washing machine, that you can clean it. Otherwise, it's a disaster. What we heard about biofilm. You can imagine what type of biofilm will be in a tube like that if you are not able to wash it. And I think that's a lot of small but very, very, very important details if we talk about a machine, especially if we talk about a cleaning machine. Make sure that between all the elements of a machine, there is a gap that you can wash through, a gap where the air can through, that it can dry out, and that you don't have surfaces which are very close together, so that they won't be dry, and therefore bacteria growth will be there, of course, a lot. Make sure that all the filter, the level switch, whatever, are outside, that you can clean them properly. Otherwise, it will not work. Again, you can't expect from a washing machine which doesn't work, which you can't clean proper, will not give you good results. The development, I think, in terms of drying of crates, for example, will go more and more away from the blower, the air dryer, because as well, when you look in those units in detail and all these air tubes in detail, I believe you might clean the crate good in the washing machine, but later on the dryer, you bring all the bacteria back. So we are developing a unit which is a vibration. So to vibrate the water from the crate, and therefore to make sure that we don't recontaminate the units again with contaminated air. And we're developing as well a steam disinfection, because as well that I think is very important. You can do a chemical disinfection, there is no doubt, and you can do a hot water disinfection. But we agree that when we say principally it should be at more than 82 degrees hot water to disinfect the crate, but we know even in the boiler there might be 82 degrees, but until it comes to the nozzle in the machine and it comes out of the nozzle, it might be 70 degrees. And as it reaches the crate, it might have 65 degrees, and the surface on the crate is maybe 60 degrees. And therefore, at the end of the day, it will not work. It's for me as well something to keep some people happy, but it's not really working. Therefore, we said the only thing which is really working is to have a short steam disinfection. That's the only thing where we really have a heat disinfection. Anything else doesn't make sense. And of course, you reduce water consumption, which we think is more and more very important, especially the water consumption. And I don't have to tell you guys in South Africa how important water and the availability of water is. That's why we're developing more and more things like that. And what is for the crates? That's the same for the bin washers. I think you have to think about how to wash your bins. It doesn't make sense to have the contaminated bins again and again and again. Therefore, there are developments as well in terms of bin washers, which we do have. One thing is to have a separated pre-wash, so meaning the first very dirt parts coming out of the trolley, we put it separate, straight in the drainage system, not to recontaminate the water. And as well, there are developments on the market to have the bin washer as well steam sanitized, which we think is very important. And of course, because of the heat of the steam, they are drying much faster than before. The same is with the smoke trolleys. There are units to wash those trolleys, and as well, that's let's say units where you push in on one side and going out on the other side, which we think is especially, I said it in the beginning, but I have to repeat it always again, to split the raw and the cooked product side, for example. So not to have a cross-contamination from one side to the other. And of course, if you do have a washing machine where you push it in on one side and take it out on the other side, that's far better than having it only in one direction. The same is with pellets, which maybe are not as strict, but as well pellets. Be aware that even pellets you have to clean, and you have to think about what type of contamination you will bring in your factory with things like that. At the end of the day, I just can repeat myself, cleaning is not a science. Just take it serious, make a plan, and fulfill this plan consequent, and then you will see it's easy. So thank you guys. I hope I wasn't too long.